Hey guys, how's it going? Jason Sensational here, and back today we're back at it with another deck guide. This one for Sejuani Gangplank. Unfortunately, Gangplank did just get nerfed by 1 health, so some of the graphics might be a little bit off, but the deck itself is still gonna be very strong after the patch. Gangplank's a little bit hit. Doesn't change the overall game plan, doesn't change the overall amount of pressure that this deck can provide, and it doesn't change the fact that Sejuani can lock your opponent's board out. But if you didn't understand a single word I just said, this is the video for you if you want to learn this deck. So without further ado, let's jump into the video. Alright guys, let's talk Plunder. Gangplank Sejuani, aka Plunder, aka, I don't know if there's another name, but this is a very aggressive sort of mid-rangey tempo deck. The main goal of the deck is to play for board really early on with a lot of 1 and 2 drops such as Jagged Butcher, Corsair, and Morai Warden, as well as being able to proc your Plunder triggers in order to level up your champions Gangplank and Sejuani. Both of them actually have the same level up condition that says you damage the enemy nexus in 5 different rounds, and this deck is built to capitalize on that. We have the pings from the Crackshot Corsair, we have the white boards on our attack turns, and we have warning shots, parlays, and make it rains, as well as monkey idols to give us the powder monkeys and the Yordle grifters for those extra warning shots. This will play out as a pretty aggressive deck, aiming to close games around turns 5, 6, 7, depending on how fast you can level up your champions, and depending on how much pressure you can apply early on. But let's dive into the deck and look at it a little bit closer. So the deck's overall strategy is probably relatively simple on paper. The main goal is to level up your champions. Depending on the matchup, obviously you want Gangplank when you want to apply pressure, and you want Sejuani when you need to play a little bit more defensively. But both champions can be very, very powerful, even on their own in any given board state. Just having very high stats for their mana costs, Gangplank being a 6/5 for 5, and Sejuani being a 6/7 for 6, can just outpower your opponent's board for the cost that they're given. Now again, the overall strategy is to level up your champions as fast as you can. If you have the attack token on odds, being able to level up Gangplank by your turn 5 attack can often really end games when you just deal 2 to the whole of your opponent's board. Sejuani the same as well. If you really need Sejuani's board lock against another mid-range deck like Pantheon or like a Yordle Rally deck, for example, just having leveled up Sejuani on turn 6 with a warning shot can often just stall out the game until you have the closing cards. And our abilities to proc that ability for both our champions include the cards like Warning Shot, Corsair, Parlay, Make It Rain, Monkey Idol, Grifter. There's a lot of cards that will do that for you, but knowing when to use it can be very, very important. I will say that in some instances, you don't need to level up on turn, or to proc on your finish level up on turn 5. That's only really necessary or really strong when you have Gangplank attack on turn 5. But if you have the attack token on your even turns, it's okay to level them up by turn 6. But when you're falling behind turn 6, that's when you need to be a little bit wary of when you're using your procs. And so it's definitely very easy to fall into a trap where you need to save warning shot to activate like a merchant for next turn, but you need it to get the trigger for your champions this turn. So it's definitely like a balance between the two. That's where it gets a little bit more complicated if you don't have enough cards to do so. And so the strategy to define it a little bit better is to really utilize the attack token for those plunder procs. You don't want to be using cards like warning shots or make it rains on your attack token, because you want to be saving those for when you don't have the attack token and can't attack and deal damage to level your champs. Now, of course, there will be exceptions where clearing your opponent's board with like a Make It Rain can be very powerful, or removing like a key unit with Parlay to get in a better attack can be really strong as well. But just as a general guideline is to avoid using those cards to trigger your plunders when you don't need to. And that's why the main strategy for the early game is to develop really aggressively. You have cards like Morai Warden that can just allow you to go really wide. You have a lot of 1-drops if you draw them correctly, and you have the Corsair, which allows you to just attack with anything and pretty much trigger the plunder by itself. So for this deck, the early game is really about knowing when to develop and when to open an attack to just guarantee that damage proc. In some matchups where they can't really develop, can't really punish you, you can go really wide push a lot of damage early on, and then once Gangplank comes down, the game is basically over. But in other cases where you play Mirai Warden and they play House Spider, and then suddenly you just don't really have an attack, you need to take those open attacks really aggressively in order to guarantee that you're leveling up your champions as fast as possible. And so in our mulligans, we always want to be prioritizing these high tempo cards early on, provided that our opponent can't like avalanche us, for example. And of course, we want to save our spells for our off turns. Cards like Make It Rain, Warning Shot, or key spells to really use when you don't have the attack token, because it's so much easier to trigger Plunder on our attack tokens by just attacking. And we want to be using these cards to trigger them on our off turns just so that we can level up our champions by turn 5 or 6. It's very important to do so just because half of our turns we don't realistically have the attack token. And so in order to capitalize on these cards, it's good to set up board states to maximize the odds to hit like a Make It Rain onto the Nexus, or maybe you need to just parlay the Nexus in case your opponent has like a Fervor or like a Twin Discipline or even like a Nopify to protect their unit. But those are the key rules and the key strategies, the guidelines to be able to level up your champions as fast as possible. So how does that translate into the mulligan? I think it's pretty clear what our early game wants to look like. We just want to play high tempo cards, get that board state so that we can reliably trigger Plunder on our attack turns. And this is where cards like Crackshot Corsair, Jagged Butcher, and Mirai Warden really make up the bulk of our first 2 turns. Being able to play a combination of these cards early on will pretty much guarantee us to be able to trigger our Plunder proc for at least the first 3 turns. I think some very interesting cards that you could keep in the mulligan are cards like Parlay when necessary. If you're on evens and your opponent's like a really aggressive aggro deck and they play 1 health units, keeping Parlay to activate Plunder on turn 1 can be very, very powerful. The same goes for other cards like Make It Rain. Just when your opponent, your opponent plays a lot of 1 health units and can't really punish you for playing Make It Rain, those cards are a lot better to keep in the mulligan as well. Now, once you're getting into the slower matchups, this is when you need to know when you want to keep champions. Gangplank and Sejuani are obviously 2 of your most powerful cards within your deck. Both have very unique abilities to close out the game within different matchups. And knowing when to keep them and what hands you're allowed to keep them in can really, really boost how you play the game with this deck. Some cards I think are potentially look good in the mulligan but maybe aren't good enough are cards like Monkey Idol and Fortune Croaker. Monkey Idol, for one, is a turn 3 play unless your hand is specifically like a 1-drop, 2-drop. Keeping Monkey Idol is often very, very greedy. I think a lot of people will see this card and it's a trigger for turns 4, 5, and 6, and that just guarantees my level up on turn 6. But if you don't have that early game to apply pressure or even to get the triggers early on, I've seen games where people pass turns 1, 2, and then play Monkey Idol, and then suddenly they're just really far behind. Because at the end of the day, we're still just a tempoed mid-range deck, and if we lose the first 2 turns, we're just putting ourselves in a bad position. Similarly, for Fortune Croaker, we do want to play this card for value. This deck, it will run out of value sometimes. It has very little card draw and often relies on the nab cards to gain a little bit more of that card advantage back. So playing this card as a 2-mana 2/3 is often really, really poor, and you'd much rather have like a Jagged Butcher or even like a Mirai Warden. There's better cards for the cost that do a little bit more for your deck. Cards that just generally aren't maybe good enough to keep. This is where things get a little bit tricky. Cards like Warning Shot and the nab cards like Merchant and Grifter can sometimes be awkward. I don't mind keeping a card like Merchant if we're attacking on evens and we have Crackshot Corsair and our opponent doesn't play like a 2/1, for example, on turn 1. Some very specific hand states where we can open attack on turn 2, get the trigger, and play Merchant can be very, very powerful, especially for curving into like a Yordle Grifter later on. But for the same reasons that these cards aren't as good as cards like Mirai Warden, for example, or like a couple more 1-drops, you kind of want to be mulling a little bit more aggressively for your early game. And so cards like Yordle Grifter and Merchant, even though they can curve out really well, sometimes you just want to look a little bit harder for a card like Mirai Warden or Jagged Butcher or even Corsair. And then Warning Shot's like a little bit tricky. This is always a hard card to evaluate when you want to keep or not. I think in some cases you can keep this card to combo with some of your Plunder cards like Jagged Butcher. If you want to Warning Shot Jagged on turn 1, that can often just shut down a lot of aggro games early on, just having a 1-mana 3/3 on board. But if you're keeping this card in like a slower matchup, yeah, you want to be like able to level up your champions by that turn 5, turn 6, but I feel like sometimes you can just draw like a 1-drop and then just attack with it, and sometimes it serves the same purpose without sometimes being a dead card in hand. But I've seen games where people just cast on turn 1, they level up their champions on turn 5 because they just draw the right cards. So it's definitely like a gauge to, you need to gauge your current hand state, decide whether or not keeping Warning Shot will guarantee you that level up, and kind of figure out your curve through that. So finally, I want to talk a little bit about matchups. Ken and Ezreal did get nerfed, so I don't think it's very relevant right now. But where Plunder shines is against some of the slower decks and some of the more mid-rangey decks. So against a deck like Pantheon, once you have level Sejuani down on board, and you'll notice this theme through a lot of other decks, either leveled Sejuani or leveled Gangplank just ends the game. Against Pantheon, they just can't deal with the level Sejuani, and once you get to that state, it should be a very, very favorite game for you. Other slow decks include like Bandletree, Darkness. Those decks just really get out pressured by Gangplank. You have such powerful late game that they only really have a single target removal. So even if you have 2 mini morphs in there, if they only have 2 mini morphs, we have like 6 champions, right? So once we get that Valley game going, that just mid game, late game pressure from our big champions just often really runs over those decks. Thralls is probably one of our weaker matchups. It's just very hard to deal with like burst 8/8s that come down and open attack on you unless you have leveled Sejuani. And even in cases where you do have leveled Sejuani, they can just entomb your Sejuani, and then you just have no way of dealing with their Thralls. Another really scary consideration is Lissandra when leveled, just suddenly makes your Plunder procs very, very awkward. Warning Shot, Make It Rain, Parlay, just no longer trigger Plunder when they go face unless there is a barrel off of level Gangplank. This matchup is still winnable, of course, but this is probably one of Plunder's weaker matchups. And then where Plunder struggles a little bit more as well is some of the board-wide aggro, even like the burn-related decks. I put Pot Yordle Rally on here because I thought it was popular. Obviously, it got nerfed as well. But so into some of like the more beefier mid-range stuff, Yordle Rallies is probably a little bit closer to even. Last season, the Zed Rally, because they went wide really quickly, because they had the elusives, a little bit unfavored, and then other burn decks like Ziggs Poppy also saw a little bit of weakness just because there's no answer to wide early boards, with the exception of Make It Rain or just a really good curve on your own. And then of course no heal to burn makes our deck susceptible to kind of these burn strategies, but overall better into the slower decks, better into the big mid-range decks, a little bit weaker into the board-wide ones. And that's that. That's the deck guide. I'll leave you guys with 3 games right now. The deck really hasn't changed much over the past expansion and a half, and so I see that this deck, even with the small nerf to Gangplank's health, being a very, very strong contender within the meta. I'll leave you guys with some games just to see how the deck pilots, but I'll leave it there. Thank you guys for tuning into the deck guide, and I thank you guys for watching so far. So peace out, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Take care. Zoe Lee. Interesting matchup. Oh, it's Dan Flum. What's up, buddy? Oh my god, that card's insane. Yeah, good luck, man. This hand's kind of nuts. Parlay kind of sucks-ish. It's okay. It's situationally okay. This isn't activated on 2. I'd rather just find aggression, I think. Being parlay is just like the only like potential thing. Even then, it's not realistically that good all the time. Especially if I need it to trigger, I'd have to aim it face. Okay, this hand's way better. Yeah, so this is like a Gangplank level on 5 kind of hand, which is like the most important thing we can do. I think I always go for this just because he has to have exactly Nulpify to punish me. If he like twins or like pales, that's kind of fine. Ah shit, unlucky. That really sucks. Not too much you can do about that. On turn 3, he could like Star Chart like a something that kill it. It'd have to be like a charger, and that's like 3 mana. That's his whole turn. You can play like an Eye of the Dragon and then Pale. Kinda sucks. But that's 1 spell on a turn. and he can't like play another spell, yeah, that's fine. The issue is we can't level Gangplank on 5. It's kind of a big deal. If he does develop in some capacity, we do have Zap, Spray, Fin, a block, which is good. Smart. Like, we'll just pester him down. We can, like, make it rain again, threaten his Zoe, ping the Nexus. And these don't particularly matter just because we have the elusive. Like, this is like a key chance to just, like, pop his Zoe. And then if he has to, like, Pale or something again, that's, like, a 3rd spell in a turn he doesn't really want to cast 3 spells. Sure. Gangplank's not flipped, so it's kind of pointless. If he finds Crescent, that's kind of annoying. Maybe I should have just swung in because of that. Ooh. That is annoying. He doesn't play a 2nd spell though. And then if he plays the 2nd spell, he can pop the Parlay. Yeah, so now we can kill the Trickster. And then we have Warning Shot into leveled Gangplank. Maybe it was better to kill Zoe. Kind of interesting. Interesting. This is like really not good for him. We'll try to keep our health total high. But we're still kind of struggling. If you don't have a Sej, then it's going to be kind of difficult. He hasn't shown Lee Sin either, which is good. Because his Zoe's gonna die again next turn. Unless he denies the, like, the thing off the Gangplank skill. They should, like, give... I guess they do have skills. It's Powerful Explosion. And this is fine, right? We get the open attack, he can't stun our Gangplank. He can, like, will it. Just doesn't look like he has it. And then you're just gonna pop his board, right? Oh, Jesus Christ. I think the Gangplank attack's more important here, just so I can at least clear everything. Like, if he stuns my Gangplank, then I'm not really happy just by sticking Sej. And I don't attack with these guys, even though they're, like, technically free, in case he denies a skill, right? Then I'd, like, feel really bad just giving him free heals. But the Sej here should cement things. It should be hard for him to kill us. And then, as long as we never tap under 6 mana on a turn, his Lee Sin should never get through us. That's not true because of Hush and Will of Ionia, but in practice. If we can clear everything, we're like chilling, nice. Because now, he wasn't repping Lee Sin beforehand, and oh, I guess he always had it. We don't develop Sej? Yeah, we just, I mean, we could. It's like, he's most likely going to Zenith into next turn, because if he doesn't Zenith, then like, it's kind of like, he can't kill us. So, like, this is fine. I don't mind doing it just because we have Make It Rain, but if he, like, denies the Make It Rain, then that's kind of weird. But yeah, like, there's really no point here, just because he has to develop, like, the Zenith Blade in order to kill us. That's a slow action, unless he does it now. Okay, so that's not Zenith, which means we don't need to play Sej. But I don't want to lose my Gangplank either, which is interesting. Like, I'm not sold on what I should do here. So he got Infernum off of that, which is good for us, because he's going to open Infernum. And then we can't, like, our GP doesn't die. And the open attack here should just kill him. And then he can't, like, buff to kill either champion just because I have Make It Rain as well. He's gonna bounce back Gangplank, which is smart. And then I can just develop and just open attack kill him. He hasn't cast a second spell here. Oh, what? Interesting. Sort of bizarre. Woohoo. So this is Palm. And then he's still dead. Deep med for 5. Ouch. So you can only Palm once. And then he's still dead. He needs Palm plus Guiding. He could deny the skill. Okay, cool. Okay, that was actually kind of close. I've been playing a good amount of, like, Zoe Lee recently, and I've just been, like, beating every Plunder player as long as I play it correctly, but it's like a super tight matchup. I think for at least like 2 seasons now I just like went 7-2 and I couldn't like qualify because I didn't have the ranking. I want a 1-drop. Although I lost like a lot of LP since. So I'm not like doing too hot in either regard, which sucks. But here we are. Story of my life, eh? I think I'd rather have a 3-3. I could have like Make It Rained. I don't know if that was necessary. That's really loud. WPO, thanks so much for the follow, my friend. We just need a board lock on turn 6, I guess. So we have the Make It Rain, we have the Zap. Yoro Grifter's a good draw as well. This turn I think I just go Make It Rain Zap, and then worst case scenario he has like Avalanche. Because I think keeping like the keeping the warning shots, I think, is a lot more important, especially with conjunction with Sej. And if he avalanches here, that's like, oh well. I guess I do run this. In hindsight, was GP better last game? No. Because like, well, it could be. It's just a bet, right? Like, we know he was running Get Excited, he has, like, at least Mystic shots. It's hard for me to kill, like, it's hard for me to, like, win before, like, before the attack goes through, right? like, it's not like unlikely that he could like it's fine, we have Sejuani. But this is a little bit awkward. I do want to play this just because of the plunder. I'll just screw up my curve for a turn. That's fine. Just because, like, I would need the attack to go through first before I win, right? And at that point, either I'd, like, draw shrooms where I die, or he burns me out on stack, and I can't really play around that. So I still like my play, and I still like playing Zap, but, like, we just got a little unlucky, unfortunately. Yep. And then we just lock him out with Sej.
Yeah, you don't want to cross me.
Such a bad card. How important is it to get damage through here? I think there's not really. He can entomb me, but I shouldn't die if he does. Like, I could do this to get a black merchant down, but I think we are expecting the game to go out a few turns longer. Maybe not that much longer, though.
Bow to no one.
Avalanche. I want to keep my Sej healthy. Yep, there's the level, and then we should just board lock him out of this game. If he, like, entombs our Sejuani, I can play a second one. And that's all fine and dandy. Let's see what we roll here, eh? Ooh, that's sick. Yeah, double Sej would be pretty cool. We took one Imagine Possibilities off of him. It doesn't really matter, we don't commit anything before the attack, but then we have Dreadway into Gangplank, and then we should just win from there. So what's the punish? The punish is if I tap under 6 mana, he actually gets to play Entomb, and then he gets Countdown, which we need to avoid. I think it's very important to, like, just not randomly tap under 6 mana at this point, which is kind of weird, but I still want to develop at the same time. This is a kind of a weird, interesting spot. It's hard for me to tap under 6 mana. Like, I'm kind of confused on what to do here. This is really interesting. I don't really have an attack either. We can idle here though. Why didn't we idle? If we idled, we tap under 6 mana, and then he could, like, entomb, and then play, like, Imagine Possibilities. And then we just lose. You can use, like, a warning shot here just to trade with a Thrall. Just tempting. Like, at some point, we just need him to attack first, and then us warning shotting, freezing his board, and that gives us a turn to play Dreadway, and then on our attack turn we can play Gangplank and try to win. But we can't really, like, jump the gun before that, otherwise that gives him a chance to, like, entomb our Sej, and if we tap under mana to play second Sej, he can, like, open attack and kill us, right? It's kind of interesting how that works. So the question here is, do I just want to spend a warning shot to trade with one of these Thralls? Not terribly sold on it. Just because I'm so limited on resources. But I hope that like explanation makes sense. Ooh, it's kind of funny because he could like kill this and it frees the board, which just allows him to develop. But like this is fine. Like he's playing it like bizarrely smart. I think it's fine just a warning shot here just because he can't like kill me. So like I can just like play Dreadway here. And if he goes for the entomb, I can just warning shot. But like just very importantly on that last turn where I wouldn't be able to freeze his board because he didn't have a board, and then he could like burst out his Thralls, which was really interesting board position. But now this should just be like stalemate. Well, not stalemate, but like checkmate. And now this just activates the board wipe or the board freeze. And then I saw Fury of the North. They're like 3 sisters. Okay. Drevo, what's up, man? Thanks so much to follow. So at this point, he can like he's getting another Thrall, which doesn't particularly matter. We can keep Sedge alive with Fury, and it should never realistically die through that. And this should just be lethal. Like he can like oh wait, he can now entomb my set. But then I wipe his board with Ravine, which is fine. Like, kind of funny thing here, if he like entombs my Sedge, which he's gonna do, which is smart, I can freeze, and then this deals 4, and then this deals 4, which is hilarious. And that just wipes his board. But then this can deal 2. So I want my Gangplank to survive, obviously. So I can like warning shot now. This freezes his board. Attack with Gangplank. This puts these to 3. And then Ravine kills them all. And if it doesn't, I have like Ice Shard. This is a cool game. I like this one. Sure. It's also really cool is that like the freeze, he can no longer block the fearsome. Oh, he's also just dead. Okay. Alright, that simplifies things. Darkness should be a good matchup as well. I can't really deal with level Gangplank. We just have like too many threats in the mid game. I don't think keeping warning shots ever correct. Well, his hand's pretty good. Plays Hapless, okay. So worst case scenario, it gets Vile Feasted, I guess. If it doesn't, we get a second proc, and that's kind of huge. He plays like the Catalyzer, I guess we can just trade. Sure. No Catalyzer. I'm in heaven. If he doesn't have the Vile Feast, then like we're big chillin'. Annoying. Ah, that's way better than anything we can do. We trade down and play into like Whale. I guess that's fine. We just have the idol. Bling chillin'. Can you see this? I guess not really in the light. Ooh, Valfis. I mean, this attack on its own is already kind of threatening.
The value of coin.
Oh, he has a whale. Damn. Unlucky.
Boys. Safety will cost you.
Ooh, that's a card. It's actually so good. Not only is that probably one of his side, if we ever just like have a position where like we really can't get back out of, like that's kind of insane. If only we had like a harpoon. If we had harpoon, we just like win, because we can never like realistically play a champion out. I mean, that's not like particularly true, but he's just like slow playing it, and I'm just gonna act like I have harpoon, but I really don't. Alright, that's good as well. Like, he's afraid of playing Veigar into my harpoon, right? Like, I'm repping harpoon, he's repping as a champion, and now he's like decided to tap out of it, right? We still haven't drawn our champions, but I'm like, you know, he hasn't progressed his darkness whatsoever. Like, we're kind of chilling here for now. This being 5 mana is kind of big. Oh, Shadow Fiend. And like, we'll just forcefully make him trade down his board. If he wants to play Veigar, I'll probably just mini-morph it. Like, this doesn't matter, we just trade down as well. We also have Ruination. Bouncing Bomb, sure you got it. Yeah, like if he overdevelops, we also just like play into Ruination, right? It's kind of funny. Oh, he's just gonna kill it? Okay. I guess we can just Vile Feast then. We still need to draw our champions, but now that like we've taken a mini morph and a Ruination, his deck's pretty light on removal. And at some point he's gonna have to commit into it, right? Like, this is a fine Ruination, honestly. Like, how am I killing these guys ever? If I don't have a target, he can't play this. It's so funny. Honestly, that's fine. We deny him the healing, we deny him the darkness proc. If he plays like a catalyzer, which he probably doesn't have, then like we're fine. Yeah, like now he doesn't get the proc here either, right? And then we just draw a Gangplank.
I'm not greedy. My friends.
What is this play? Now again, he's put in an awkward spot where he can't really play a champion right away. He has to like kill my Gangplank. So if he has to mini-morph this turn, he also can't play a champion. And eventually I'm just gonna slowly outgrind him.
Anything can be scattered with
Okay.
violence, even us.
I guess that's okay. I can let him block here if he wants to.
Seize the opportunity.
What are you made of?
This might be wrong. Like, I can just like wait for a Sejuani, or I can have like the mini morph because I can just kill it. Well, I guess he can't kill it now. This is kind of interesting. I don't know. Maybe this was wrong.
Boys.
I didn't really like not attacking either. But like the only reason I wouldn't attack is if I draw Sejuani, which is also kind of awkward. I don't know. It was a little strange. Oh, okay. That's fine then. You got it. And again, he's like super mana strapped, right? If he plays like Veigar here, he's not really doing anything.
The ocean herself will fear us.
And like, are you gonna shoot my keg? Oh, I guess you can do that. This deals 4 damage now. Steals 4 damage. Sheesh. Yep. Alright, I drop Gangplank. And then if he has to mini-morph this, I can just go wide, and then these warning shots just kill him. Oh, he doesn't have a fearsome blocker. Maybe I should just attacked. Kind of interesting. Attacking with just Jedway is probably wrong, but it's funny that that was at the very least a consideration. Because, like, he still doesn't have a fearsome blocker. I mean, now he does, but it just dies. We can... Nah, we can warning shot. It's not worth putting in extra damage there.
Let's get it, crew.
He's so screwed. It's kind of funny. Oh. Wait, what is this? Okay. And then we can like warning shot into Withering Mist.